Okay, so we're going to prove the converse of the alternate exterior angles theorem. If two lines cut by a transversal have congruent alternate exterior angles, then the two lines must be parallel. Okay, so for this specific diagram, the statement states if angle 1 is congruent to angle 8 and 2 is congruent to 7, then these two lines must be parallel to each other. Okay, so the strategy we're going to use for this was similar to the one that we used for the converse of the alternate interior angle theorem. Okay, we want to show that 1 is congruent to 6, 4 is congruent to 7, 2 is congruent to 5, and 3 is congruent to 8, aka the corresponding angles are congruent. And then using the corresponding angles postulate, if all the corresponding angles are congruent, that means that the two lines must be parallel that are cut by the transversal. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin. The first thing we'll do is start our proof. And we're going to assume angle 8 or angle 1 is congruent to angle 8 and angle 2 is congruent to angle 7. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is use the vertical angle theorem, right? So the vertical angle theorem tells us that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. Angle 5 is congruent to angle 7. And angle 6 is congruent to angle 8. All right, so I want to somehow connect the congruencies to where I can get 1 and 6, and 4 and 7, 2 and 5, and 3 and 8. So let's see, what can I do here? Well, I know that angle 1 is congruent to angle 8, and angle 8 is congruent to angle 6. So this means that angle 1 is congruent to angle 6, right? That's 1/4 of the way done. I also know that angle, 2 is congruent to angle 7, and angle 7 is congruent to, angle 2 is congruent to angle 7, and 7 is congruent to 5, right? So this implies that angle 2 is congruent to angle 5, right? So there we go. Split this off here so I can have some room. I know that, angle 4 is congruent to angle 2, right? And 2 is congruent to 7. So this means that angle 4 is congruent to angle 7. And lastly, I know that angle 3 is congruent to angle 1. And angle 1 is congruent to angle 8. So this implies that angle 3 is congruent to angle 8. So look at what I have. I have 1's congruent to 6, 2's congruent to 5, 3's congruent to 8, and 4's congruent to 7. All the corresponding angles are congruent, just from our assumption and the vertical angle theorem. So by the corresponding angles postulate, right, I know that if I have angle 1 is congruent to angle 6, angle 4 is congruent to angle 7, angle 2 is congruent to angle 5, and angle 3 is congruent to angle 8. All the corresponding angles are congruent. This means, right, if and only if P is parallel to Q, right? So if I have this, then I have P is parallel to Q, and that is what I wanted to show. I wanted P parallel to Q, and that is it.